Yá'át'ééh. Good morning, my relatives. It is about 11:30 on Monday, February 14th. It's Valentine's Day, and I'm sitting down to drink my second cup of coffee. I wanted to start this live stream as I always do by acknowledging that I'm speaking to you from what's now known as Washington, D.C., and that these are the lands of the Piscataway. I want to honor the Piscataway as the hosts of these lands. I want to thank them for their stewardship of these lands. And I want to just state how humbled I am to be living on these lands today. I want to thank people for joining me. I see Phil Fox is here. Yá'át'ééh. Good morning, Phil. Good morning, Adam. Thanks for jumping on this morning. It's good to be with you. I hope everybody has a good cup of coffee. There's a few things I wanted to talk about this morning. I don't have a massive agenda, although the longer I sat here preparing, the more I realized I had a few things I wanted to say. But I wanted to start just by talking a little bit about, of course, the Super Bowl yesterday and some of the dialogue coming out regarding the halftime show. And right, it was a very interesting display yesterday because obviously African American rappers and hip hop artists were center stage, and a musical genre that has really never been on full display at the Super Bowl was the highlight, was the center of the entire show yesterday. And there was a lot of really big stars, and it was a well done production. And there was a lot of excitement. If you watched on Twitter and on social media, there were a lot of people, especially African Americans, who were very excited about what was happening on the stage, and that there was such a large representation of the African American community. And I'm excited about those things, right? I'm glad to see that representation be there. It has not been there in the past. What I was left pondering, and I did watch most of the Super Bowl yesterday. I'm not a major NFL fan, but I did sit down and watch a good portion of the game yesterday, as well as the halftime show and most of the advertisements. But as I was watching it and as I was thinking about it, and especially as I was thinking about it in light of the conversation I had about a week ago with my friend Leroy Barber, right? And we had a conversation over my second cup of coffee a little over a week ago, and we talked about this lawsuit being brought against the NFL by a African American coach, really calling out the racism and the white supremacy that is systemically within the institution of the National Football League, and being very kind of explicit as far as this is where it happened, this is what it looks like, and comparing it, to enslavement, and saying it's being run like a plantation, and he's not wrong, right? And this happened in the week and a half going up into the Super Bowl, and so of course it dominated the dialogue over the past few weeks in the news streams. And the NFL, of course, was quick to say they denied all those allegations and they're not racist. And then later they came back and said, "Well, we're working on it. We're not where we want to be." But there was a lot of discussion about how systemically racist and white supremacist the National Football League is, right? And that's pretty hard to deny. And Leroy and I had a really good discussion about that. And I put the show, the link to that in the comments, and I invite you to look at that. There's a lot of other links in that show that you can go to read more about kind of the context behind that. And I think where I got more deep in thought was, as this morning and even last night, as I read through social media and I saw this very excited response about the representation of Black artists and dancers and people on the stage. Of course, white conservatives were going crazy about the style of dance that they were doing, but there was a lot of excitement generated around just the representation that was on this massive stage. And it made me really wonder, like, what is the goal? Because the NFL which is steeped in consumerism and capitalism and exploitation, and is known that white supremacy and racism is systemic within the leadership and the institution of this league. And one week we're calling that out, and then the next week we're celebrating that people from the margins are at the center of that stage. But the stage is still a place of exploitation. And I think that's where and I'm not singling anybody out. I'm not saying this is necessarily a bad thing. I'm saying it's causing me to think and really to question, what is the broader goal, right? Does the presence of people of color on these stages, does that make it less exploitive? Or are we just now partaking in the exploitation? Right? It's kind of like the doctrine of discovery, where the doctrine of discovery dehumanizes people of color, and it sets it up as the legal precedent for land titles. And so when people of color buy houses, that doesn't make it any less of an exploitation. It just means now people of color are partaking in this exploitation. And I think that's the same question I have with this. I found it difficult to truly celebrate what I saw on the stage, because while I was grateful there was representation there and that hadn't been there before, and I was grateful it was acknowledging what has kind of gone on within the musical scene within our country over the past several decades, but I don't want to make the goal merely for people of color to stand on the same stages of white landowning men and have the opportunity to profit and benefit and partake in the exploitation like the rest, like white landowning men. I feel like there needs to be a different stage. It has to be built differently. It has to be, I don't know what it is, but I mean, when you look at the consumerism, right, of the Super Bowl. And yeah, so anyway, so those were some of the thoughts I had. I don't have an answer to this. I don't have a solution to this. I'm not saying everyone's wrong or everyone's right, but I'm saying this is where it gets complex, right? When the systems are based on exploitation, I don't think the goal is merely to get people on the stage, right? The world will not be better if we just have more people of color who are billionaires, right? That's not the goal. The goal is to not have billionaires, right? That's the goal. To not have such a massive inequality between the haves and the have-nots. And yes, we absolutely need to create more equity and more equality across racial lines. But the goal is not just to give people of color, people from the margins, the same access to live as unsustainably and with so much inequality and exploitation as white landowning men. White landowning men are not the goal, right? What they have, what white people have, is not the enviable position, because what they have is based on the exploitation and oppression of others. So just celebrating that we're on their stage is not, that's not the answer. That being said, it was good to see more representation on that stage yesterday. But we have to be careful that we don't allow just getting to that stage as being the goal. So anyway, those are a few thoughts I had. I'll share a few stories, and I know this is stuff that people are thinking about, right? In the New York Times today, there was an article titled "Rap Takes Over Super Bowl Halftime: Balancing Celebration and Protest." And right, Eminem kneeled in the during the halftime show. There was a story in AP talking about how the performers, Snoop Dogg, Dr. Dre, others, vowed that their presence on the stage would be a way to open doors for other people to get on that stage. And so it's not like people aren't thinking about these things. But I think just as a general group of people, as a nation, we have to really, especially as people of color from the margins, we have to really ask ourselves, what is the goal? And I would argue the goal is not just to get what white people have. If that's the goal, then we're not going to go anywhere quickly. We may get what they have, but we're not going to make the system any less just or any more fair or equal. We're just going to have access to the same ways of exploitation as white people have, which is not the goal. So anyway, that's a few thoughts I have about the Super Bowl and the Super Bowl halftime show. And yeah, I encourage you, think about it, shoot me some questions about it. I'm definitely going to be pondering it more and putting it into my thoughts. But those are a few things I wanted to share this morning. Yeah, Miles is talking about the arena. Yeah, SoFi Arena, right? This is the company that has all of these student loans, right? I mean, the whole thing, right? This whole system is based on exploitation, right? You can't avoid it. You cannot partake in the Super Bowl and not be a part of this exploitive system because the system is based on exploitation. It's been institutionalized. It's historic. It's there. So anyway, yeah, there's a lot of good comments going on out there about that. Thanks for bringing that in, Miles. Anyway, I want to give you a little bit of a preview of some of my schedule coming up this week. So tomorrow, I'm taking part in, it's called a climate cafe, and I'm going to put a link for it in the comment section here. And the climate cafe is held the first and second and third Tuesday of each month at 11 a.m. Pacific time, 2 p.m. Eastern time. It's an opportunity for faith leaders and clergy to get together to share experiences and engage a discussion with a short presentation and Q&A around the subject of climate change, climate effect, and climate solutions. Hope. And the organizers asked me to take part in this, and they asked me to if I could come on and speak. So I'm going to give about a 15 to 20 minute, maybe 25-minute presentation tomorrow, followed by some Q&A talking about the doctrine of discovery around the theme of climate change and how we not only use the doctrine to exploit people, but we use it to exploit the environment. And so I invite you to join me. If you go to that site, there's a way that you can register for that. I believe it's a free event, and I welcome you to, if you want to register for that, you can join that tomorrow. The other thing I wanted to share is I've tweeted some of these things out, but I'm going to share them in here. The first of all, I'm gonna put this. This a tweet that I shared the other day, and right, one of the challenges of my message is that it's challenging, and some of the best reviews and responses that I get and that I see and I try to highlight are people acknowledging and being honest with how challenging our book on Unsettling Truths and my message around the doctrine of discovery really is. And the other day there was a Twitter thread, and I'm going to share a link to that here in the comment section right now. I really like this thread, so I encourage you to read the whole thread. It's actually about Sung-Chan Ra and his work, Prophetic Lament, The Next Evangelical, and then they have 3 tweets about Unsettling Truths, and they bring in our book, and they talk about my voice in there too. And the first tweet that I didn't put in this comment, but it's in the link, it says, "Then Unsettling Truths with Mark Charles. If the other books packed a punch, this one, whew." And it's not one you can freely recommend to the elders and stakeholders of your mostly white church unless you like vicious emails and angry conservatives. But man, go read it. And then his next comment, which is the one I shared, said Unselling Truths deconstructs America, manifest destiny, race, and the church. It shows how racism becomes institutionalized, a helpful paradigm to understand, and lays out the colonizing history of our country. It's the most inspiring 15-hour gut punch I've ever received. I retweeted that yesterday, and I just said, I love seeing reviews like this, right? Because that's our goal. The goal was not to hold anything back. The goal was to be as honest and as truthful about these issues as we possibly could, to say things that needed to be said, but to also keep the reader engaged. And so when I see reviews like this of people who say this was the most inspiring 15-hour gut punch I've ever received, that really makes me happy. And so, of course, now that I was tagged in this tweet, I get responses to it. And this morning, there was another response to this tweet. I just want to share it here because, again, this is the things that really make me happy. Someone responded to that Twitter thread, and it was from a user named Miriam Forrester. And they said, we had Mark Charles speak one Sunday at our church in, I think it was 2017. It was amazing. And we lost like 500 people after because they were mad. Yeah, I love those kind of things. But I highlight these to show you the challenge we have of really promoting this work. I love it when people share these kind of stories and these interactions of what happened and the way it challenged people. And even if they left, right? When I was a pastor, when I was preaching regularly in churches, I would tell people, I think we don't have people leaving our churches enough, right? Because we offend people because we're mean. We don't offend people with the actual truth of what the Gospels are about. Um, and so when I hear that people hear my message and they really appreciate it, and it causes people to get angry and to walk out, I'm like, yeah, that's part of the goal. You should be angry. And it doesn't. Yeah, so anyway, I wanted to just share that as well. I'm going to share another link. I'm just giving you some previews, some stuff that came out a few weeks ago. I did a podcast with a podcast called Theology in the Raw. And it was with Preston Sprinkle. And I want to share that with you. He posted that last week, and so it's up on his website. And we had a pretty honest conversation. So I want to put that there if you'd like to listen to or watch that podcast. And then I'm also going to put up, if you're interested in, if you haven't got a copy of Unselling Truths yet, I'll put a link in here in the comments, and you can definitely get a link there. And if you like my platform and you appreciate the stuff I'm trying to do and the things we're talking about here, I really encourage you to join me on Patreon. It's a way that I can begin to kind of stabilize my income, as well as to raise some funds to invest in expanding the platform that I'm trying to build here. And so I welcome you to join me on Patreon. We have 4 levels on there, and even the most basic level, which is the $5 level at Patreon, it gives access to ad-free versions of my 7 Cups of Coffee and audio downloads of my videos. And so you can download videos from our download audio files, because I don't have a podcast, but you can get audio files from Patreon there. And then the second level, which is $10 a month, gives you access to a Q&A, which I will have 1 or 2 Q&As a month. One I will have this coming Friday, and then another one I'll have next week with a guest. And I'm still trying to confirm who I'm going to have for that, but I'm very excited about the possibilities. I'll let you know as that comes out more fully. And then the third level gives you access to a lecture. And this week or this month, my lecture will be on Christian nationalism. And then the fourth level gives you access to an online book study with myself and Soong-Chan Rah, going through 1 chapter a month of Unsettling Truths. So I also want to highlight next Monday, a week from today, is President's Day. And as you can imagine, I will be giving a lecture on my YouTube channel, on my Facebook, about the mythological legacy of Abraham Lincoln, right? You've heard me talk before. I am disgusted at how we honor this vile man who was a blatant white supremacist and one of the most genocidal presidents in our nation's history. And I will be giving a lecture a week from today, deconstructing his mythological legacy and laying out what he really stood for, what he truly believed, and what his legacy actually was. And so I welcome you to join me on YouTube and on my Facebook next week for that lecture. And then last but by no means least, I want to share with you a link that I got this link from Native News Online this morning, but it's from a group called the 1491s. And they did a project, this was almost 8 years ago, I think, 2013, where they asked Indigenous peoples from around the globe for Valentine's Day, to send in how to say I love you in your Indigenous language. And it's about a 6-minute video, and I welcome you to watch it. And it's just people from across the country and around the globe, Indigenous people, sharing the words I love you in our languages. So it'd be a great thing to watch this Valentine's Day. I hope you enjoy that. But yeah, I just wanted to kind of go over some things as we look into this week ahead. Obviously, we have stuff going on with Ukraine. I will hopefully be talking about that more later this week. We have other things going on in the news. The Democrats and Republicans around the country are dropping mask mandates. It's like we're having a little reprieve from Omicron. And so everyone's dropping their mask mandates, and we need to think very closely about that, very intentionally about, are we ready to do this? The CDC, as well as other government agencies, are saying no, don't drop that yet. We still need masks in schools. We still need to protect ourselves from this virus. Don't just because numbers are dropping think this pandemic is over. And so I want to again encourage people, when you go out, and I'm not saying don't go out, but when you go out, wear a mask, do your best to social distance. Please, if you haven't been vaccinated, consider getting vaccinated. Protect your health and protect the health of those who you love, those around you. And please do your best to keep yourself and your family, your loved ones healthy. Anyway, I hope you have a great day, my relatives. I hope your second cup of coffee is just as good as mine is. And walk in beauty. And maybe learn how to walk in beauty together. Actually, before I jump off, let me see if I missed any comments here. Let's see what else. Debbie, exciting stuff you have going on. I'll put this on the thanks for what you're trying to do and educate. Thanks, Debbie. It's so good to have you on here. I'm glad you could be there. Miles looks like he was planning to join. Phil's making some comments. Thank you, Patty Shield, for being here. Thank you, Adam, for joining in on this conversation. I hope these are helpful dialogues that we can have. And I hope we have some good discussions coming out of this. Anyway, walk in beauty, my relatives. And maybe we learn how to walk in beauty together. And hakone.